Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to Sun Up on 7. Once more, it's a pleasure having this interaction with you. Everybody that's on their way to work, already at work, or going back to school, wish you all the best. It's Monday. Remember, we wish you all the best, and you got this. So it's time for our last conversation, and it's not going to be, any less than informative and engaging, and of course, very fruitful. Today, we're going to be talking about the a joint UN migration plan, and this initiative has been spearheaded by IOM, UNICEF, and UNHCR. So we're going to be talking with our representatives today about what's within this joint plan and, of course, what can Belize benefit out of it. Right, so joining us on our couch, we have Ms. Alison Parker, UNICEF representative of Belize. Ms. Alison, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you feeling this Monday?
Very well, and so happy to see the kids going to school this morning.
Oh, yeah, right?
Amazing.
Beautiful. Also joining us, we have Ms. Diane Locke, who's the head of National Office of IOM. How are you, Ms. Diana?
Morning, tired.
Tired?
I'm here.
I love your festive colors.
It's September.
Yes.
I thought I'd brighten the mood, even if I didn't feel it, right?
Yeah.
Love that idea.
For surely you do. For surely you do. And also joining us via Zoom, we have Ms. Kerry Williams, who's Senior Protection Assistant at UNHCR. Good morning, Ms. Kerry. How are you feeling? Can you
Hi,
hear
good
us?
morning.
How are you doing this Monday?
I'm doing well. Excited to see my little one off this morning as well to school.
All right. Everybody's in this back to school motionless. No,
Backpack and everything.
cute.
They probably
So,
most
so
adorable
cute.
thing ever.
Right. So let's talk about this joint UN migration plan.
Yes.
So Ms. Allison, can you please give us an insight into what's the joint plan, how did it come up to be, and what are the things that we're grabbing into for Belize?
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for having us this morning. And I think the Joint UN Migration Plan has been an amazing initiative, especially for the sub-region of the Caribbean. This is the first time that UNICEF, IOM, and UNHCR are actually coming together to look at how we support one of the most vulnerable groups, the migrants, asylum seekers, as well as persons of concern.
Right.
And of course, for us as UNICEF, children are fundamental to all of this because it is families that are on the move. The first signage was last year, so we actually triggered it last year, and we were able to go to the field together with IOM and UNHCR, and we began to see the need that was on the ground in terms of having access to basic social services for some of these vulnerable groups, having access to health, to education, to social protection, because documentations may not necessarily be right, or some documentations may be missing, or people just lack the knowledge and the information as to where to get it. And so this year, the three agencies actually started new country programs with the government of Belize. And it was amazing that we decided that why don't we come again together more strategically and say, how can we pull human, financial, and all the resources we have to make sure that as Belize announces its amnesty for 2022, we can actually pull resources and really invest and make a difference. So that's the background to this. And we are really pleased that we can come together like this and be able to support the government at a pivotal time when we have this huge campaign to make sure that we can foster social cohesion and integration within our society. So the plan is actually to support the Belize Amnesty 2022 and beyond, and to ensure that there is effective support for basic social services, as well as foster cohesion, not just with the migrants and refugees, but also with the host communities, the local Belizeans who have been supporting all of these families coming into their communities.
Yeah. And it's also beautiful, the fact that all of these agencies, they're already doing work when it comes to migration. And the fact that you're pulling them together and you're saying like saving resources or making the best of resources in all its means, it really highlights, the collaboration, but also the support that you're providing to the government, which is really, really vital here.
Most definitely. And like Ms. Allison was saying, this is a very vulnerable population.
Yeah.
Most of the times, these people are really leaving their country for numerous reasons. Some of them are taken as children. They don't know what's happening. And so, you're thrust into a country, language barriers, so much things, and lack of finances. It's definitely something where you can see the UN has come and said, let's put the finances there, let's put the services and the access to the services there so they can be able to, benefit from it. So I want to bring Ms. Kerry in on this conversation because she deals with UNHCR, and I know, refugees are a very, very vulnerable population. They come in basically with not much choice because of seeking for safety. And so can you talk to us a little bit about, under this UN Joint Migration Plan, what are the activities that UNHCR are going to be carrying out?
Well, it was key for us to partner with IOM and UNICEF, because while our global mandate, and we do have the same mandate locally, is to provide protection and lasting solutions for asylum seekers and refugees, as you rightly put it. But it's also that many times our mandates overlap, because our concern is also for those children of asylum seekers and refugees, and where asylum seekers and refugees live in communities where their neighbors might be that of migrants, where their neighbors are Belizeans. For us, it is essential not just to provide support to our persons, but again, where our mandates overlap, where we can support our key partner, which is the government. We are extremely grateful, of course, as an organization, that our asylum seekers and refugees are included in the upcoming amnesty. But there's also areas where we can look at strengthening the child protection systems in our country, not just to the benefit, again, to our asylum seeker children, but to all children who have all rights afforded to them, irrespective or irrelevant of their legal status in the country.
Most definitely. And I know, Ms. D, you have been like hands-on, going out into the communities a lot when it comes to the amnesty program, seeing so many children. We've dealt with parents that have 6, 7 children, and to actually afford to go into the amnesty, it's very costly. Many people have turned away because of saying, I don't have the money, I don't have the resources, and I'm not able to be into the system. Can you talk to us a little bit about, the statistics and the numbers, the situations that you're dealing with when you go out into the fields for the amnesty program?
Basically, for us, we are probably around the 4,200 consultation mark. We've engaged with about that amount of persons, maybe a little bit more. That may translate, some people came back twice, and so it may be a little lower number in terms of the individual. But the need that we're seeing out there is, as you mentioned, in terms of families. There are many families out there that qualify. They have been selective in whom they're going to bring into the amnesty because of the finances. And so we have had a chance to speak to them and say, no, you can't be selective. You have to put everyone in. It's generally the finances just to complete the application process. And that's that could range, if you find a reasonable service provider, anywhere between $75 to $100, or in some places people are charging service charges, which are really exorbitant. So I am happy that with the help of UNICEF and UNHCR, we can go out into the field. We can offer this service free of cost. In cases we actually pay for some of the services in communities where there's really a need. This weekend and last weekend in Toledo, we provided, we took birth certificates, police records, medical, we paid for the medical. We processed birth certificates, police records and translations. And so we're paying for some of those for people who can't afford it or who have very large families. We're covering some of those costs, but that's the need that we see right now. People are not coming out. If you look at the numbers released by the government, those numbers are relatively low. We know that there are communities that we can't get to, particularly in the South. This weekend we were in the South. We were working in Corazon Creek. That was a nice 2-hour Juve kind of movement in the vehicle. So while you're having Juve,
we're seeing roads on the screen, I'm like,
while you're having Juve in Belize City, we were Juveing on those roads in the van.
Wow.
And we went to Corazon Creek. It took us 2 hours from Punta Gorda town, and we saw about, I was told, approximately 150, maybe more persons there. And then the following day we were in Blue Creek, where we saw maybe up to 75 persons. That was a shorter day. But there is a need to go back. And under our joint work plan, if I could pull in the work plan, something that came across very strongly to me yesterday, and Alison and I will sit down and we'll talk about this, what we can do, how we can help, is the need for identity documents. And that is critical because a lot of people can't do anything. We had people who were in the amnesty that could not get their Belizean child registered to show that they need to qualify in the amnesty.
Wow.
Everything comes back to that really important piece of document called the birth certificate. So my heart was really full this weekend. Every time I think a bit about it, I get emotional because we enjoy a lot of luxuries here in the city and in the other parts of the country. But in Toledo, that's a different world.
Yeah, you could definitely feel the fact
So,
that you need to be
yeah.
present.
So
doing the work, yeah?
we did 2 hubs in September so far in there. We are hoping to be able to go back and do one more around the 17th. We have to take a break this weekend for the holiday, but I'm hoping we could go back in and do one more because there is a great need there for the amnesty. But more than the amnesty, there is a need under our joint work plan. If I could just quickly tell you with IOM that we're working with UNICEF, we do work with children too, with the Ministry of Human Development in terms of capacity building and training for caregivers for children and children who are migrant children in those communities. So again, I come back and I share information with her that I pick up in the field, and she does the same. And we're going to be continuing to develop this work plan.
Miss Allison, I saw when I was doing in the hubs too as well, a lot of young people are not going to schools. And I know education is like high up here when it comes to UNICEF. That is a right that every child should be able to have. And a lot of kids are just not having it because, maybe not the finances or the language barrier or even to get to the school is a big issue. I know that's a priority for UNICEF. How do you guys feel like you'll be able to try to accommodate or support these families, moving forward, especially with the amnesty program, because you'll get the information?
I think that's why the amnesty program is so pivotal. For us, UNICEF has actually been supporting migrant communities for quite a long time. And not just in the area of education. We've been looking at it from a wraparound services. What do migrant families really need?
Yeah.
I think Diane spoke very much to the fact that they need documentation. If you don't have a documentation, you cannot access basic social services like school, like health. So until you have those basic documents, you're not going to be able to move anywhere. But UNICEF has been supporting a lot of the schools where we have huge levels of migrant communities. And this is something we're going to continue to invest in. For us, there are 6 principles that we look at for the children. The first is, how do we look at the root causes of children on the move, whether they be migrants, whether they be refugees, or whatever the case may be. There are issues of conflict, there's issues of violence, gang violence, there's issues of poverty, there's issues of climate change now impacting all of that, there's issues of the pandemic. And so in order to seek healthcare, in order to seek economic employability, these parents start moving with the children. It heightens vulnerability.
Right.
Children are now exposed to trafficking, they're exposed to smuggling, they're exposed to sexual abuse, because along the way, maybe the parents could be indicted, they could be in detention, they could be incarcerated, and then the kids are left unaccompanied. And we are seeing a growing number of unaccompanied children. And what you're speaking to, Renata, is very much on point. When I have a 16-year-old, when I went to San Pedro, it was very early this year, I met a 16-year-old who had 5 other siblings. They ranged from 16 to 3, and their parents had been incarcerated. She doesn't know what to do.
Wow.
She just doesn't know what to do. And that's where UNICEF came in and supported them to be able to get some support from the Ministry of Human Development, as well as an NGO that is working on the ground there to make sure they can bring them in and help them to be. And imagine it was during COVID, schools were not open, and so they have lost learning. So it's a double loss. Losing parents, losing income, and losing everything that you hold dear. So it's a very burning issue, and I think it's a concern for all of us. So education is really pivotal, and I'm really pleased that the Ministry of Education has really been supportive in all the information that we've shared with them, and they are very open to make learning as inclusive as possible. Every child, no matter their status, has the right to education. They didn't move, their families moved. And so they cannot be detained, they cannot be deprived just because their families are moving. So when they come into Belize, and I think Belize has really been open in that space, education has been an area where we've been able to get access. Need for improvement? Absolutely. We want to make sure that we use this Belize Amnesty 2022 to strengthen the systems.
Yeah.
To make sure that it doesn't have to be an amnesty before we move, but it becomes part of an integrated system where you can have access to your birth certificate, you have access to learning, you have access to healthcare, you have access to social protection, and you can become a good citizen, somebody who can actually contribute to society. I want to say here that when we talk about migrants, there's always a concern, as to external of foreigners coming in and coming into a country and maybe taking over our jobs, etc. But I want to say that with this amnesty, these people have been living up with us for the past 10 years, the past 5 years, the past maybe some of them 20 years. It's a second generation that have been living with us. They've been neighbors. They've been partners in development. And when we look at it, you can enrich national development because they come in with skill sets. Some of them are businessmen. Some of them, they come in and they complement what we have in a country. And so we look forward to that social cohesion, as I keep saying, addressing issues of xenophobia and realizing that these have been my neighbors for the last 10 years. And we can continue to build a community and a society together if we can ensure equal access to basic social services.
Oof, yes. I definitely commend, the joint collaboration. Clearly, it fills the gap when it comes to the government and their amnesty program. I mean, hearing the story about people don't even have their birth certificate, it's really shocking. So you're coming here, filling that gap, but also you're the eyes and ears of each other's organization, where you're seeing what's happening in the community, feeding off each other and seeing, as you rightly said, how do we improve our response to the community. So
and it starts with a birth certificate, Kevin, because you'd be surprised the amount of people that don't have that or have one that's falling apart and we can't really be using that.
Right.
So it's a scary thing because all of us look at these things as we didn't even double think about it. I want to just bring in Ms. Kerrie one more time in on this conversation. So for UNHCR, we know you deal with refugees, asylum seekers, and for the amnesty, you're getting permanent residency afterwards. Could you tell us about, the support when it comes to having these people now finally be able to be into the system properly, where they're going to be they can call Belize their home. That's going to be, they're not going to be, asylum seekers. This is their home now, Could you tell us about that process when it comes to UNHCR and being able to have these people, refugees and asylum seekers into our system now?
Echoing what Ms. Alison Parker just mentioned, many of the asylum seekers and refugees that live in Belize and that have called Belize home because of the safety that we offer, the protections, the democracy that we enjoy, the peace we enjoy in our country, these persons have had to flee their country because of war, violence, and persecution, and have sought refuge here. Amnesty offers a permanent and lasting solution to their issues, to their protection issues. Oftentimes, when asylum seekers enter the country, they're here on a temporary status until they are able to go through the asylum process, which is a government-run process by the Refugees Department. Upon determination of their asylum claim, persons can receive recognized refugee status. And that does offer persons and their families, I will say, a lot of the rights and protections that we as, we can say born Belizeans enjoy. However, permanent residence offers increased rights, increased protection. It offers these individuals surety that they will not be returned to a country where their lives will more than likely be in danger, where they will face harm, where their children may face harm. And for UNHCR, we saw this amnesty as key. We provide support not just through our joint UN work plan, but also to our local CSOs and NGOs that we have partnerships with. And key is our main partner, the government of Belize, through the Refugees Department. We've provided both material and technical support, and we hope to continue to foster that partnership, that key partnership, for the continued protection and the provision of lasting solutions for our persons of concern. And so while amnesty is the big ticket item here, and that for us it provides our persons who are already in the country, I think that it's a misconception that we are working hard to dispel through our public information and public education efforts and activities, to dispel the misconception that these are persons who are just entering the country. Yeah. These are persons who are your neighbors. You buy tacos from them in the morning, and we all know how sometimes we're running late for work and our tacos will just hit the spot. These are persons who are selling fruits to us, where we stop on a corner and buy our fruits and veggies. These are persons whose kids go to school with our kids. These are persons who might have sewn our kids' uniforms and that we picked them up from last night. So these are persons who are already a part of our communities, already an integral component of the fabric that we have woven into our country. And so providing these persons, ensuring that they have the rights that and privileges that should be afforded to them is something that we as an organization are extremely grateful to the government of Belize. And so I think as a part of our continued support, not just around the amnesty, as I mentioned, we look at strengthening and fostering these partnerships and strengthening the government systems, working in partnership with the government.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that, Ms. Kerry. Just to add on, piggyback off that, I remember when I went to my first ever hub in Belmopan, I met Yesenia, and she was telling me that, she came into Belize seeking asylum and everything, and later on they said this is her home, and so she's studying and she wants to give back. She wants to be a doctor to give back to Belize. And I was like, you look at that kind of stories, and there's so many other stories like hers where people look at Belize and this is their home. You can't tell they're any different. They're a Belizean, even in Albania, they're a Belizean. And so it's just a beautiful process to see that, they're getting that wish come true. They're getting that permanent residence, the rights that they deserve, and the access to the services that they so deserve and have the right to, because they're our neighbors that live here for up to an amount of years. When you see the passports where they are from 19, whatever it is, we've seen so many things on those hubs, but they are here. It's not just come or whatever. So I'm hoping that our Belizean population understand this and they welcome them and accept the process and see if they can even support in any kind of way, shape, or form. Yeah. But I want to thank you all so much for being here and for this amazing joint UN partnership that we're having, this collaboration. It's great to see that we put our resources, we put our technical support, everything together, and we're just fighting for the same good, because I know every single one of you have big agendas already, a lot on the plate, but to see that you come together and say, like, let's work together on this specific issue because we all have it in common. That is a beautiful process. So I thank you for that so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
And with that, we go to our final commercial break for today. When we're back, we're going to be wrapping up today's show, guys. Stay tuned.